What if the moment that could have saved you from years of heartbreak lasted less than 30 seconds and you talked yourself out of it? I'm Vaishali, and as an engineer turned psychic with over 9,000 readings, I've noticed something I never quite expected to see. The smartest, most successful women aren't usually fooled because they lack intuition. They are fooled because they override it with logic, hope, and explanations. One of my clients, let's call her Anna for the sake of this video, has a story which is a perfect example. So, let's get started. Anna didn't like me when we first met, however, she still came back. Anna came to see me 6 months after we had first talked. She owned a successful high-end gift shop where she sold one-of-a-kind gifts for birthdays and special occasions as well as gift cards. She had built a beautiful business, was financially independent, and from the outside, it looked like her life was finally all coming together. This time, she wanted to know about meeting her future life partner. However, I recalled a very different Anna, the one whose voice cracked while she was talking to me over the phone, and she couldn't help crying when I told her how things would play out in her relationship with Zane. So, Anna, wanting to look into her future partner, told me that she had moved on from Zane. Not to take things for granted, before we looked into what was coming, I asked her something. Anna, why are you back? She took a deep breath, so deep that I could hear her breath over the phone. Then she said something I'll never forget. 6 months ago, I wasn't ready to hear what you had to say. At the time, Anna had been heartbroken. She and her then boyfriend Zane had spent 5 years building a life together. She truly believed that they would end up getting married. During our first meeting, I told her something she wasn't quite ready to hear, nor was she expecting it. I told her I didn't see Zane coming back. She uttered something that made me gasp in disbelief. But one of my teachers had once told me, no matter what the person in front of you is saying, so long as you stick to saying what you see, you'll never go wrong. So I stuck to what I saw for Anna and Zane, and it wasn't really pleasant. She couldn't really understand how someone who had spent 5 years of his life with her could simply walk away. She wasn't angry with me. She just wasn't ready to believe it. So she held on. She waited. She hoped. And in the process, weeks turned to months. Then one day she saw Zane with his new girlfriend at the mall, smiling, laughing, and shopping together. She then realized that Zane was indeed not going to come back. That relationship was over for good. As she was talking to me on the phone 6 months later, I could sense her quiet smile as she said, "You were right in terms of what you saw about me and Zane. I just wasn't ready to hear it back then. Then she paused for a moment before adding, but that's not the part that keeps replaying in my mind. I asked her what she meant. She said, I keep thinking about all the times my intuition was trying to warn me, and how I kept explaining every one of them away. That's when our conversation took a completely different direction. Instead of talking about her future partner, we ended up talking about the relationship that she had left behind. She remembered one moment with absolute clarity. Not the breakup, not the last argument, and not the day he left. It was the moment her intuition first tried to protect her. Episode 1. Can you read into your gut feeling, or do you try to justify things? It happened nearly 2 years before the relationship ended. She had landed a great opportunity for her gift shop, and she was excited to share it with Zane. She couldn't wait to tell him, and she was expecting him to be really excited for her. Instead, he barely looked up, changed the subject, and gave her a quick smile. And in that instant, Anna felt something she couldn't explain. Not anger, not sadness, but just a quiet heaviness in her chest. A tiny voice inside her whispered, "Pay attention." But within seconds, another voice took over. "He's just tired. He's had a stressful day. I'm reading too much into this." So she pushed the feeling aside. The lesson here is about the first whisper. Your intuition starts warning you with a whisper first. Anna feels something. She cannot explain it. She cannot analyze it. So she ignores the feeling. At this point, the key emotion Anna feels is confusion. Have you ever had a moment when your intuition tried to warn you about something, but you didn't realize it until much, much later? Go ahead and share your story in the comments. You never know who might need to read it today. Episode 2. Do you try to justify a bad behavior? Zane was traveling when Anna's birthday came around. He called. He wished her happy birthday. That was it. When he came home, nothing. No flowers, no gift, no cards, no celebration. No dinner, and not even a conversation about it. Anna sat in her high-end gift shop the next day. She was looking at all the birthday cards she had helped her customers buy for their loved one. And one thought quietly entered her mind. If my best friend told me the story, I would tell her that she deserves better. She knew it, and she felt it. But almost immediately, another thought pushed its way in. We've already spent 5 years together. Relationships go through rough patches. Maybe I'm expecting too much. I can't throw away 5 years over one birthday. Looking back, she realized something. She wasn't protecting the relationship anymore. She was protecting the 5 years they'd already invested. She stayed because she couldn't let go of the investment. The lesson here is about justification. It is called sunk cost fallacy. Sunk cost fallacy is a cognitive bias where people continue a failed endeavor, whether be it a relationship, a project, or a business, because of the time, money, and effort that they have invested into it. If you are in such a situation, ask yourself this question. If I had not invested all this time into the relationship, would I still make the same decision today? If the answer is anything other than a yes, it may be time to cut your losses. Sometimes your situation may look different, but the premise related to intuition remains the same. It always warns you before the fat lady sings. Episode 3. Does intuition create drama in a relationship? Months later, the same feeling returned for Anna. When she stopped sharing her dreams because she did not want them dismissed. When she found herself making excuses related to Zane's behavior to her friends. And when she noticed that she felt more peaceful when he wasn't around. None of these moments seemed dramatic on their own, but together they were forming a pattern. That's how intuition really works. It doesn't always arrive as a loud warning. More often, it keeps returning as a quiet feeling until you're willing to listen. The lesson here is about isolation and shrinking. She stops telling her friends what's happening and becomes a smaller version of herself. Essentially, she starts making excuses for behavior that you would never accept from someone you love. And in the process, she stops being herself and starts losing her identity. Have you ever noticed this happen to anyone? Share this video with them because this may just be the message they want to hear today. How many times does intuition try to warn you? After thousands of readings, I've noticed the same thing over and over. People rarely tell me I never had a warning. Instead, they tell me that I felt something, but I just didn't trust it. If you've ever looked back on a relationship and thought, I knew something wasn't right, you probably did. Your intuition was not silent. It was patient. It kept trying to reach you over and over again in more ways than one. However, the real question isn't whether your intuition is trying to connect with you. It's whether you have learned to recognize its voice before your heart starts making excuses. Because sometimes the relationship that changes your life isn't the one that you stay in. It is the one your intuition is trying to help you leave. Sooner rather than later. Before the wounds get too deep. Before the time gets too long. And before you see it play out in front of your eyes in the worst way possible. So, why do we ignore our intuition? Most people don't ignore their intuition because they are weak. They ignore it because they are hopeful. They've invested time. They are imagining the future and they are afraid of starting over. Hope is beautiful until it becomes louder than the truth. How does intuition really feel? People often expect intuition to arrive like lightning. It usually doesn't. It feels like you start editing yourself around them. You don't feel excited to see their name on the phone anymore. You feel relief when the plans get cancelled. You stop feeling emotionally safe. You can't explain why, but your body keeps trying. Your intuition often talks through the quiet discomfort you've been taught to dismiss. Does intuition ask you to judge someone? If this video reminded you of someone, don't ignore that feeling. Not every uncomfortable moment means that the relationship is wrong, but every uncomfortable feeling deserves your attention. Your intuition isn't asking you to judge someone, it's asking you to stay connected to yourself. Because the healthiest relationship you'll ever have is the one where you trust your own inner voice. Your inner voice is always trying to communicate with you. However, there is always a gap between the time when intuition reveals its answer to you and things play out in real life. This is called the intuition gap, and that is the subject of my next video. I'll see you there. Bye.